everybody. I'm Katherina. Nice to see all of you here. Do I need to eat the mic?
Yes.
Am I eating the mic sufficiently? Woo! Okay. Thanks for the nudge. Okay, so my name's Katherina. I work at Noyo Center, and before that, I was the director of an organization down in Mexico called Whales of Guerrero. And I gave a whole talk in May about this thing that I started in the community and how we fell in love with nature through whales and got together. Who was at that talk? A few people. So those are your people that you can talk to about that. Tonight, we're going to geek out about whales. So I'm not going to talk a whole lot about community science, even though it's my very most favorite thing in the world. And I will talk about it another time. Today, we're going to talk about whales. So I'm not a scientist. I'm going to out myself right away and let you know I'm not a lettered scientist. I'm a music school dropout with a degree in ancient religion. And I love three things more than anything in the world. I love whales. I love Mexico. And I love bringing people together to make good things happen. Those are the three things I love more than anything in the world. And so in 2014, I put these three things I love together into a project. And I began something where we did community-based whale research in Mexico. And so this is where we were in deep, see that little tiny red dot? That's Southwest Pacific Mexico. We're not talking Baja. We're like way down south in the state of Guerrero. And I was in this little tiny village that I had been visiting since 1997 called Barra de Potosi. And so there's that big green hill and there's a tiny little village there. There's 3 streets by 3 streets, a tic-tac-toe village. That's Barra de Potosi. And that's the village that I love most of all in Mexico. So when I got there in 1997, I was there on a sabbatical. I'd been working at the Exploratorium. I was tired and I needed a little break. So I went down to Mexico and I fell in love with the place. I just thought it was incredible. And so I started just going back there year after year. And this is what I talked about in May. And I'm not going to go through the whole history of the whales of Guerrero. But when I started, when I started the project in 2014, no one had ever studied whales before down there. No one knew what kind of marine mammals were down there. And everybody thought it was a terrible idea that I should do this because it was Guerrero. It was full of narcos and the H1N1 virus had just ripped through the village and the economy was in a slump and it was dangerous and there was nothing there and it was a very bad idea to go try and study whales there. But I did it anyway. So this is what we knew about whales when I got there. We knew that there were humpback whales because I'd seen them when I'd been out fishing and people figured they came through. We knew that humpback whales from the North Pacific, which is this group, were coming up here off the coast of California to eat, and they go down to Mexico and Central America for love and babies. So that's where they mate, that's where they calve, that's where they nurse their young. That's what we knew when I started there. What we didn't know is if this was a place where humpback whales were going on purpose or if it was like I-5 and they're just going to LA and they're driving by to Central America and that was it. So how did we even know that the humpback whales are, these whales go here and they go here? We do it by their flukes. Every fluke of every humpback whale is as unique as your thumbprint. And so you can take a picture of the underside of a fluke and that can tell you everything about a whale. You see it up here, you see it down there, that's that animal, just like your thumbprint. It doesn't change through its life. So back in 2004, there was a study that I was not involved with, but whaling stopped. There was the global moratorium on whaling in 1986. Whale population was coming back. We didn't know what was going on, but we were seeing more whales off the coasts of California and all over the US. So there was this big research effort that was like the coolest, biggest collaboration that had ever happened called SPLASH. And it happened from 2004 till 2006. And the idea was that they would get like 50 research groups with over 400 scientists in 10 countries to all go out and take pictures of whale tails over 3 years. And by taking pictures of these tails, they would figure out how many whales there were, how the populations went together, if there were little subgroups, where they went, how they went back, and how humans might be impacting the whales. So for 3 years, people went out and they did that. And they took over 18,000 pictures of humpback whale flukes that were really good quality. I mean, you can't even imagine how many bad quality. Okay, so this is what they figured out. This guy, John Kalamakidis from Cascadia Research Collective, was organizing and facilitating the whole thing. It took them a few years to crunch that massive amount of data together. And they figured out that there's different subgroups of whales. And so they saw that from Mexico and Central America, there was one group in Central America that went up kind of toward the middle of California. And then there was another group from mainland Mexico, meaning like Puerto Vallarta and Baja, and they would go farther north to Monterey, they would go to San Francisco, to the Farallands, and sometimes even off of here in Oregon and Washington. So that's what they figured out with that massive, giant effort. And so using that information, they were able to split up the world's whales, or the North Pacific whales, by different groups. Now, humpback whales are called a cosmopolitan species. That means that you see them in every ocean in the world. But they have different songs, they have different behaviors, they have a very different thing, and their genes are even different. So the North Pacific whales have two subgroups. One was called the Central America whales, and those guys were the ones that were, they believed at that time from the study that there were 411 whales. Isn't that specific? And then from the Mexico group, the mainland Mexico, they figured there were about 5,000 whales. So that means that the Central America whales were definitely an endangered, tiny little group of whales. And the ones where there were only 5,000, that's still a threatened group that could become endangered. So out of all the whales in the world, the whales that came off of our coast to eat were both endangered and they were a threatened little group of whales. Okay, so that's cool, but I was in Guerrero. Look at where that arrow was. There was no research there because dangerous and ugh. So I had fish fever back then, and I would go out fishing all the time down there, and I would always see whales, and I knew there were whales. So I went to these scientists that like had actual degrees and was like, well, what do you think? And they said, don't go there, it's a bad idea. And I did it anyway. So the questions we had to figure out were, what group of whales are in Guerrero? Are they the Central America ones? Are these guys just bombing by en route to Central America? Is this an extension of Central America? Are they traveling farther south from Puerto Vallarta down to us? Who were these guys that were coming in our area? Is Guerrero a stopping point, or is it just a spot that they cruise right through and that was it? We needed to figure out if the whales are using the area in our little village to right offshore to breed and calf and nurse, or if it was just kind of a waypoint. And also we needed to figure out, where do Guerrero whales go when they're not in Guerrero? Lots of questions. Okay, so this is how it started. There's me on the boat with Arturo. Arturo is a captain that liked nature and kind of was up for working with a girl that didn't speak very much Spanish and didn't know what she was doing and was willing to struggle around in a boat with me for 300 hours. And what I did is I went to every person I knew and I asked them to give me money to do this crazy project. And I got $20,000 from all my friends and family who started hiding after the first year when I saw them. But the first year I got $20,000. And that paid for 300 hours of boat time. So I went out and I burned my retinas and my skin and got pictures of whales. And so like I was a museum lady and I like to share. So I couldn't just like go get the pictures. I had to share it. So I would get back from the boat and I put this little map and this little calendar in this tiny tic-tac-toe village. And every day I would get off the boat and I would go to the middle of the village and I would mark on the calendar we saw this many whales and they were singing today and here's where they were. And the kids got curious and the kids started coming to the boat and I would be getting off the boat and they would help me carry my hydrophone and my gear and they'd say, how many whales? And I want to write the thing. And they started getting interested and they started making offerings. They started putting these drawings under my door to lure me into their hearts. And so they became enchanted. And it was not long before the boat started looking like that. It was full of kids. And I had to dodge their little heads to get pictures of the flukes, but I didn't really mind. Now, as things progressed, it wasn't just me. This is Eric Ramos. Who knows Eric Ramos? Does anybody know that name? Well, you all should. Eric Ramos, he died a couple years ago, and he was an incredible scientist and an amazing drone pilot, and he was prolific and he was generous, and it's important that we keep his memory alive, so I always have to share Eric because he helped us. Here's Eric sending his drone up, and sending that drone up and giving us this new view of the whale was a revelation for us. It changed so much. And you're gonna see, I'm gonna show you some stuff that he shot later that's pretty cool. So there's us being fancy on our boat with a drone. Okay, so what do we figure out? This whale was probably the most special whale I ever met. Her name was WGRB-HB003. And she was a she because I saw her with a calf, so I knew she was a female. And I saw her very nervously because she was the third whale I ever took a picture of, and I didn't really know how to use the camera well yet. So that's the best shot I could get of this beautiful, beautiful whale with her calf off the coast of Barra de Potosi. So back then, there was no automated fluke system recognition. I would get all my pictures and I would put them on a hard drive and back them up and drive them to Olympia, Washington, because I wouldn't even risk mailing that thing, give it to Cascadia. They processed all my pictures, and a few months later, there are many interns had been through, and then they would call and say, okay, we have results. They had looked through their thousands of pictures, and my first year, I only got 24 pictures of different flukes. But they called and they said, we have some results. And this was this whale's match. It turns out WGRP-HB003 was their CRC12049. Now this blew my mind that I had seen a whale down in Mexico that they saw in San Francisco, in Monterey, off the Farallon Islands. I couldn't believe it that such a thing was possible. So that year, in order to support ourselves after 2014, we started a whale adoption program. And this is a very cool story. This man named Ferd Bergholz, his wife had died, and her name was Fran. And she was born on the 4th of July. And he named her this whale in her memory and adopted her, which helped us support our program. So it was Fran's birthday. It was the 4th of July. And he went whale watching. He was very sad and he missed her, and he went out to kind of distract himself and to commemorate her. And he went out on a boat, and this whale jumped in front of his boat, and he took that picture. That is Fran. That's his whale on his birthday. So that was cool. Okay, so years went by, and this wondrous new thing came about. Happy Whale. Who knows about Happy Whale? Happy Whale is amazing. It's changed the face of whale science. It's an automated fluke recognition system. So you take a picture of a whale, even a not very good one of its fluke, you upload it to the thing, it automatically tells you who your whale is and where it's ever been seen. So what used to take thousands of hours in interns now is done in the snap of a finger. And I can go out on a boat, take a picture, and upload it right then, and we can know everything about the whale. And because of Happy Whale, we know 90% of the whales in the whole North Pacific as individuals. It's extraordinary to get out there, and 90% of the whales are whales that we know, that we've seen before, and you get sighting histories about them when you're out there in real time. And so happy whale in a very individual level the whales become very personal, and it also has changed the way we see populations of whales. Okay, so years went by, we got better. I hired good, smart, friendly, thoughtful interns, and well, they weren't ever interns, they're always paid team members. And year by year, we started collecting about 100 flukes a year. And as of 2024, we had collected 892 flukes. I think we're at over 1,000 now. We haven't quite finished uploading them, but we are almost there. So every year we've been collecting new flukes year after year after year. We're going into our 13th year now. And we are resighting some of the whales. Some of them we've seen up to 5 times, but most of the whales are still first time down in Guerrero, but we see them in other places. So that means that we haven't leveled off in terms of population. We're not seeing the same people again and again, you know? We're seeing like new. So we still don't know how many whales we have. All right, so this is where the whales go. Kind of mind-blowing. Ted Cheeseman, the founder of Happy Whale, sent me this picture today. I needed an update. And I don't even understand it, honestly. I mean, I do. What we're looking at is every place, every little dot is where a whale has been sighted. So like our whales in Guerrero have been sighted 9,357 times in Monterey. Now, yeah, there's a lot of whales in Monterey. There's also a lot of eyes with cameras in Monterey taking pictures. So there's a lot of data in Monterey. So you got to balance that out. So what we figured out is the whales of Guerrero go to Southern California. They go to Central California. Some of them come up as far as here. And so what that told us is that our whales are part of 2 different populations. We have the Central America whales and we have the mainland Mexico whales. So we're hosting both groups. And then we have the funny little backpacker whales, right? The wanderlust guys that are like, I'm gonna go to Japan, I'm going to Russia. There's always those that are like, I will not be contained, and I love them. I mean, how can you not? So some whales are, you know, passing through Guerrero. They're going all the way down to Central America, all the way down to Guatemala. And some whales are sticking pretty close, and some of them are going north. That's what we figured out about where they go. What's that? Uh-huh.
Closer, if that's Hawaii.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so what are the whales doing in Guerrero? They are definitely having babies. Now, this is really special. This whale on your right is a brand new baby whale. This whale was maybe born that day. Like those are called fetal folds, those lines that go vertically on its body, and those are from being bent up inside of its mom. And it's got a bent over dorsal fin, and it's sitting on its mom's head. She's holding this little whale up. So it's just sitting there brand new to the world, this tiny, tiny baby whale. So this whale in the upper left-hand corner, that whale's nursing. And so humpback whales, they have their ventral slits where their mammary slits where their milk gets pushed out is out by their tail. And so that's a picture of a baby whale that's pushing on its mom's mammary slits to get her to express milk. Down below, that's a tiny, tiny, also very, very new baby whale that's probably only a week or so old. And some of these whales we would see for like in the lower left hand, that mom has a little tiny circle on her dorsal fin in a kind of interesting shape. So because of her unique tail, we hung out with her for 8 weeks. She just stayed in the bay and chilled out. So she wasn't going anywhere. That baby was born there.
How big is a tiny, tiny baby?
Oh, they're about 12 feet long.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's have a little moment with some whales. Oh, I have to do this, right? Does that work? No? Yes, it does. Can you hear?
Llegó el fin de semana y ya quiere salir. La mujer no quiere seguir.
That was less than a microphone.
Señorita, con delicadeza, una loca de la cabeza. Me dice que quiere seguir. Baila conmigo, mujer. La noche solamente comienza. En tu mirada puedo ver
All
lo
right,
que
I'm not
piensas.
going,
Esa
but
belleza.
that gives you a drone's eye view. It's pretty riveting to get to see a whale with that perspective. It changes everything, really. The other thing that the drone view can change is it's really a good conservation tool. This is a video that we took where we shot a video straight on of a mom calf right below the surface of the water. And we took a drone view, and we use this in our whale safety courses to teach captains how to be good with whales. And this really motivates and inspires people to go slow and be careful on the water. So there is a whale right there. This is exactly the same timing. You can see the tiny baby whale sitting on top of the mom. You wouldn't really know that there's a whale there. You get these tiny views, and they're right at the surface, so they're not even really blowing. But that is a real eye-opener for people who are working on the water to see what's going on out there. Okay, what else are the whales doing? They're singing. So humpback whales, only the males sing, and they sing the same song when they're from one population, and their song changes a little bit every year. They're starting to tune up right now here off of our ocean. So when we go out whale watching, which we are going to tell you about later, we have a hydrophone and we drop it down, and we've been hearing the whales singing lately. So they're tuning up, they're getting hormonal, and they're figuring out their song and getting ready to go south. So that's happening. So here's a little bit of a whale song for you. So that's another sign that we're in a breeding ground. When you've got these whales singing in the water like that, that means that they're in a reproductive state. All right, another thing that the whales are doing is they're competing to mate. And so the males get in these big fights with each other. It's all cool, it's all cool. They're hanging out, and then they find a female, and then they get in a big fight, and they start just beating each other up and chasing this one female around. And the female is going to be the one that doesn't have scars all over her body. And so sometimes we'll see these wonderful things called heat runs where you'll have like 12 whales racing across the water and the females up front, and they're just chasing along. Pretty exhilarating thing. Another thing they do is they just seem to be partying. I don't know. Everybody always wants to know why they breach, and I've got a lot of different ideas about it, but this looks like a party to me. So that seemed pretty like a good day for those guys. All right, and then this is something that started happening later on. Something that's been going on around humpbacks is that they've been getting a little bit friendly. And this video is very, very special because it was taken on a boat with some women from the village. The village where I lived, the women were afraid of going to the sea. It's a fishing village, but the village had been completely destroyed by a tsunami. And that made the women feel frightened because they had childhood memories of having to run. But their kids had been going on the boat and they were feeling braver. And so we got some funds and we were like, we're going to bring all the women to sea. And one by one, the women started getting together and coming out to sea with us. So these women had never been on a boat before, never been to sea, definitely hadn't seen a whale except from the beach. And then this happened with our tourist.
No. Mira. Hola, bonita. Hola, chula. Hola, preciosa. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás, bonita? ¿Cómo estás, bonita? Va para abajo ahora. No la vamos a tocar porque es la ley. Encontré aquí, mira qué precioso. Hola, bonita. ¿Cómo estás? No la toques, no. No la toques, por favor.
One of them's
Hola,
asking if
bonita.
you
No
can
podemos
touch the
tocarte.
whale. It's like, no, you can't touch her,
No
it's the
podemos.
law.
¿Sale?
And they're like, oh, cool.
Hey, hola, bonita. No podemos tocarte, discúlpenos.
No pensé que vería.
So that's what
Ponte la
they
otra.
think whale watching's like all the
Avísame
time.
cualquier cosa que vean raro, ¿sale?
They're ruined for life. All right, so who are these guys? How do you figure out who a whale is besides from its tail? Well, the work that we did, we don't touch the whales. And the reason we don't, I mean, I've gotten to kiss whales and touch whales, but we had to be good models, right? I mean, we're out there doing public science in the community, and everything we ever did, I would think, well, what would it look like if 25 people were doing this? And if it wouldn't look good, we wouldn't do it. And so we never did biopsies. That's where you get a little skin plug from a whale, because it causes them to have a little bit of a reaction. And I didn't want other people to think, oh, I'm a scientist, I can touch the whale even though you can't. And so we really prioritized doing exactly what the most responsible whale watch person would ever do. But we needed some skin so we could get some genetics. So this is how we did it. The whales down there slough skin in the winter. So you get a fluke. The whale shows you its fluke. They don't all show their fluke, but you get that good fluke shot. You're like, okay, now I know who this one is. Then that same whale, can't be with a big bunch because you got to know it's this whale, starts to jump. It breaches, it fin slaps, it tail laps. Now it's sloughed off a little tiny bit of skin. You go right where the whale was without risking that you're going to have the whale jump on you, and you keep a safe distance somehow. You scoop up a tiny little piece of gray skin from the water before it sinks. You get it into some molecular grade alcohol. You go to your tiny village house where the electricity goes out all the time, and you try to keep that thing cold on ice in a refrigerator. Then you try and find someone who's going to Mexico City. You get a favor and you get them to take that skin to Mexico City, where they extract the DNA using PCR tests. They get the genes of the whale. Now you've got the genes extracted. Now you get that plate and you send it all the way up to Oregon State University. Now they do more tests on it, and that determines where these whales are from, who their moms are, what different groups they come from. You get all sorts of information. So over like 12 years, we got about 50 of these pieces of whale DNA, and we did it all passively. And it told us that the whales are much more similar in genes to the Central America group than they are to the mainland Mexico group, which was important because that means they're a tiny little endangered population of whales that are hanging out in our area. Okay, so our research over time, we always shared. We shared it with NOAA, we shared with the government, we shared with like 50 universities. Everybody got our data. We did our best to collect our data super responsibly and in the best way, and then shared with people who have more brains and time and money than me to use it and go forth in science. And so our data meant that in the end, the whales in Central America got renamed. They no longer are called the Central America whales. They're now called the Southern Mexico Central America whales. And they don't think there's 411 anymore. Now they think there's 1,496. They also, let's see, they kind of re-described where the whales come and where the whales go. And so there's been renaming, changed understanding about the whales as a result of this tiny, tiny little study. So our stuff, it takes an army of people and decades to get a real picture of what's going on out there. And so we contributed our data to Happy Whale. And then Ted Cheeseman, the founder of Happy Whale, combined all of this information about the humpback whales, and he used something called mark recapture analysis, where looking at how often a whale, if a whale was resighted or if it was first time seen, helped him to understand the overall population size of the whales. And what he figured out was in 2021, he made an estimate that there were 34,500 whales in the North Pacific that were humpback whales. Now, he did the same analysis after this marine heat wave went through our ocean in 2014 to 2016, where the whales kind of disappeared. We didn't know what was going on. There was this blob, all kinds of weird stuff was going on. He did an analysis again in 2021, and the number came up 26,600 whales, which means that 7,000 whales disappeared during that marine heat wave. So 20% of the population of humpback whales in the ocean sunk down, disappeared, presumed dead, probably starved to death. And we wouldn't have even known that if it hadn't been for all of these people putting up this information into one big system. And so that's just such a testament to community power and everybody putting their stuff in little by little and then building this strong picture in the end. So that's the sciencey part. I'm not going to go deep into science now. If any of you are disappointed and you want to go more science, because we're going to talk about regulation and then we're going to have some fun. So, not that this isn't fun, this is super fun too. But, so what this is my QR code for all of the research publications that we've done as a group, okay? And so if you want to download any research, I've got dozens of tech papers and science papers and things like that. If you want to go deep, it's all in there. It's all downloadable. The government is closed right now, so you can't actually download tech memos, but you can email me. There's my email, and I will mail you any memo that you would like, and we can go super nerdy if you would like, or I can send you to someone who's smarter than me to explain. So there's our science. Now let's talk about conservation. Okay, so this is how our work changed whale protection. First of all, in Guerrero. So the work that we did, as I said in the beginning, no one had ever studied whales before. We didn't know what was there. And it went from being a place where there was no ecotourism around marine wildlife. There was big sport fishing, but there wasn't marine mammal wildlife watching stuff. In 2019, we put all of our data together. We gave it to the government and they authorized our region as an authorized whale watch zone. Now, we've been doing whale watch trainings every year anyway, but now it became an official thing where whale watch captains got to get a flag after they were after they had done this training with us. And then they were able to proudly display that, and the government backed that they really supported it, that when you go whale watching, you go with an authorized boat. And so there was this very nice layer of government protection that came in. But the thing that I really learned is I worked through several different governments over that time. And sometimes, like right now, there's this awesome government in our region and nationally in Mexico that's supporting the environment in a very big way. But it wasn't like that a few years ago. And so the community has been the one that's been consistently supporting the whales. And so even when the government changes, the community's been consistently backing the whales, making the good choices. So we have government support, but more importantly, we have champions of whales, which are the captains who are out there actually taking care of them. Okay, in the US, that is a crab pot rope tangled up around a whale tail. And so that's something that has happened here off of these waters. And when we figured out that the whales we have are an endangered little group of whales, we needed to, NOAA basically hired us to take a look at our tails and figure out what whales we have in our area. And so we spent the next few years taking pictures of every caudal sequence or a caudal sequence of a picture from the dorsal fin, the little fin, all the way to the tip of the tail. And then we would analyze every one and look for a mark that looked like it may have been caused by a crab pot rope. So these are two very likely marks that were caused by a crab pot rope where the whale has been towing a rope and somehow it's been able to free itself. But a lot of the time the whales don't survive from these entanglements. What we found out that was shocking to us was that about half of the caudal sequences we had probable crab pot entanglements on them. So that was this huge number And so we gave our results back, and it contributed to decisions that have impacted our own local fishery here, where the Dungeness crab fishery was then closed during the summertime to protect the whales, because that's when the whales are here. And then they opened it in the wintertime when the whales are down south. And so it could be a win-win if all of us really support our fishermen by supporting the fishery and eating and buying crab when the whales aren't here and when the crab is filling the meat and when it's at its very sweetest and fullest, because the fishermen are suffering that they're not able to catch crab because of the whales during the summertime. So that was one regulation that happened that we contributed to. Things we saw along the way were we saw ship strikes and prop marks. So these are a little propeller of a boat like the size of our panga would have hit these whales and caused these strange ridges to happen. So those are marks from a whale that's been hit by a propeller from a ship. And now this is the hard part. This is my dear whale Fran. So Fran was hit by a freighter off the coast of California. And her body washed up in Moss Landing in 2022. And we all knew that fluke. I mean, she was a really, really famous whale. And I mean, so many of us just cried. I had a funeral for her in Moss Landing. It was devastating. But so many people were connected with her as an individual and they mourned her so deeply. The press caught it. And they started putting out stories saying there's a boat and it hit a whale and whales are getting hit. And this is something that happens that we don't know, we don't see what's going on out there. And for every whale that washes up, many of them are getting hit by those freighters and they're just sinking down and we never even knew it happened. So this press raised awareness and people became more aware that whales were being hit. The federal court ordered that we needed to look into California shipping laws and look at where the lanes were, look at where the ships were, and figure out if we needed to change something. And then the next year, the Coast Guard and the NOAA and the Environmental Protection Agency put out a recommended speed reduction recommendation where in the areas where the whales were. Now it's recommended, it's not mandatory, but it was a really good start. And every year they've been renewing that ever since. And all of this came from a kind of an awareness and a public knowledge and pushing for it. Another kind of amazing citizen science or kind of group sourced thing that's going on is this program called Blue Whales, Blue Skies, where there are acoustic buoys out there listening for whales. There's people sighting whales, and then there's data that predicts where whales will be. And then when the whales are in the shipping lanes, boats or captains who are driving these giant ships can download an app and get a ping when it says, hey, there's probably whales in the area. We're detecting sound. We're getting sightings. We're anticipating that there's whales here. And that gives the captains a heads up because the captains, nobody wants to hit a whale and they don't even see the whale. It's just too far ahead and impossible to see. So this is another way that people are working together to help keep the whales safe. All right, so let's get local. These are the whales that have been cited and uploaded to Happy Whale here. Tim Bray's here tonight. Where's Tim? Hey, Tim, there's your pictures. Thanks, Tim. So Tim Bray has been uploading a bunch of these pictures. Has anybody else here uploaded oh, Sherry. Yep, Sherry has uploaded pictures of anybody else uploaded pictures to Happy Whale in here? So you can see we have, what, 226 individuals now, yeah? Not a lot. I mean, I think I saw 100 of them on an October whale watch last year. So there are so many whales out there and we don't know. So we're in this black hole like we were down in Guerrero where there's all those whales and we need to get out there and we need to see who's there so that we can, you know, see what they're doing and collect this information. Right now, we just don't know. These are the matches that we've had between our whales in Mexico, in my little village, to here. And I've been on boats with Tim and Sherry and Sarah and Monique probably too, and seen whales that we know. It's really thrilling when you get out there and you see a whale up here and it's feeding And you've seen it down there when it was singing, or it had a calf last time you saw it. It's quite a special thing to see. So, let's see. So what we're doing now is we know that these whales up here share the water with the whales down there. So we've launched a program about sister sites. And so now we are bringing our director from Whales of Guerrero, who took over the project from me. His name's Kike, and he's coming up next week. I'm going down to see him, and he's coming up, and we're going to launch a sister sites program where we're going to connect our communities in Mexico with Mendocino through the humpback whales. We're going to have education programs with the kids. We're going to go whale watching together. We're going to have ceremonies and parties where we send the whales off and we say goodbye and thank you. And then they receive them, and then they send them back to us and we receive them. And we've been doing it down in Mexico for over a decade, and it's really, really beautiful. So we're going to be doing that. I hope you're signed up for our newsletter, because we're going to announce when that is, and we would love for you to come. So the Sister Sites program is something that's starting. And yeah, the last thing I really want to tell you before we just have some fun is I would love for you guys to come whale watching with us. We have 2 more trips, maybe 1, depending on conditions and if we can fill the boat. So this QR code is really important. That's Noyo Pelagics. We have a partnership between Noyo Center, the Mendocino Coast Audubon Society, and Anchor Boat Charters now, where Noyo naturalists, people like Sarah Grimes and me, go out. And then we have birders aboard who know like all the stuff about the local birds. And then Richard is this fantastic captain. So we go out and we collect information about the whales, and we have a really interesting day out there. So the first one's there's only 2 left this year. There's one on Halloween, and then there's one on November 3rd. So please come aboard with us. We would love to have you out there. It takes all of us to be able to get out there. It's expensive to go do whale research and hire a boat and pay, but this is a real win-win if we can all just get out there and see what's out there and have a day at sea. Okay, so that is the part that is like the science conference part, sort of. Now we're going to do story time. So my favorite part of whale conferences is the part when you have lunch or a beer, and then they tell you a thing about that they saw that they don't understand, and they're very confused, and you're very fascinated, and it makes you want to be a whale researcher forever. And those stories are just the best, and they're what keep us going. So this is maybe one of the wildest things I ever saw a whale do. I've never heard of anybody seeing it before, and I've never showed it to anybody except for like I've shown it over a beer at conferences, but I've never shown it to a group before. So here's a head scratcher for you. Okay, so Eric Ramos is flying the drone. The day before, there had been a orca scene. The whales had fled to the waves. The moms were hiding in the waves. The males were sheltering, and there was an orca in the area. We knew that. And we were out with an expedition. We had about 8 people aboard our boat. They had already had a long day. They were hot, they were tired, but they saw this whale. So, okay, here's a whale. It's a humpback, and it's active on the surface. And what is it doing? That little object by that whale is a sea turtle. So you're looking at a humpback whale that is basically beating the crap out of a sea turtle. They're supposed to be gentle giants, but this guy was not gentle. We have hours of this, and I'm not going to show you hours of footage, but this whale just kept spinning and beating and spinning and beating this turtle up, and the turtle couldn't get away. And it just went on. And then the whale got done with the turtle, and it went to find something else. Okay, now, here we go. So now we're in a group of Mobula muciana. So these are devil rays. And they're in a huge group. There you see them jump and slap the surface sometimes. These are called, the science name is Mobula muciana, they're, bat rays. Yeah. And it's this, yeah, it's a huge group of them. We usually don't see them in a number that large. And again, you know, the drone, like when you see them from the boat, you think maybe there's a few, but then you get up above and realize you're looking at thousands of them. So, but they're very disturbed. And we were just like, wow, look at all that. Okay, what's happening? So that went on for another few batteries of the drone, and we just kept filming and filming, and this whale just was relentless and kept on chasing and beating them up. We ran out of battery, brought the drone back, put the drone back up, and we're like, okay, well, we have one more battery, let's see what happens. We went and found the whale, and this time the whale had found itself a rough-toothed dolphin. And so now the whale starts chasing this rough-toothed dolphin. And I've seen whales and rough-toothed dolphins playing, and it's very beautiful, very balletic, and they mimic and do all kinds of things. And this was not play. This dolphin was running. It did have a fish in its mouth. It was not going to let go of that fish. But this whale is just chasing this rough-toothed dolphin, and slashing and throwing itself in the direction of this dolphin. Just went on and on. So that is one of the most interesting things I have ever seen a whale do. So just thought I'd show you something kind of weird. Now the next day we went out, and look who came by the boat. This guy. And I said the thing that dum-dums say. I'm like, well, orcas have to attack in groups, and you know, like this was a solo orca, and so it was fine. But we got this fin, and I shared it around with my colleagues around Mexico. This whale has single-handedly taken down an adult whale in Mazatlan. We know this whale, and so this guy can do it. And we even got a picture of its mouth. And now look at how it's got those red scratches around its mouth. Now, causation is not correlation, but I just think that's very interesting. So that's what I got for you. And at this point, I just would like to open it up to questions and find out what you want to talk about. So, yeah.
You did a great job.
Thank you. Any questions? Oh, and I forgot to ask. My goodness, I'm the development director of Noyo Center, and I forgot to ask you to donate. How bad is that? Wow. It's free to attend, but your $10 donation helps to support these programs. If you're not members, we would love for you to be members. If you are not in our newsletter, please sign up. We want you to come. And so there's donation buckets throughout. There's our QR code. If you would like to sign up for our newsletter, donate, we'd be incredibly grateful. If each of you donated $10, that would be incredible for us tonight. And we're very glad you're here. Okay, now I did my other job. Okay, now let's talk about whales. All right, what questions do you have? Sherry.
So the whales we see here in the road whale, and they're from, I'm not saying it correctly, I'm sure, they're in Mexico. So those would be the whales from Guerrero,
Yeah, some of them would, and so some of them would come all the way down to Guerrero, and some of them will just be going down to like Puerto Vallarta. And so we're right at this border zone up here where it's sort of the northernmost reach of where I've seen the Guerrero whales go. Every once in a while, one will go farther, but we are seeing Guerrero whales here. But we're also seeing our whales here are going down to Puerto Vallarta quite a bit. Yeah.
How do you know when you're looking at a whale that it's a humpback?
Okay, so one of the ways that you can tell it's a humpback is if you get to see its fin, the fin of a humpback whale, their name in Latin is Megathera novangulae, which means giant winged New Englander. And so the humpback whale has these wing hands that you can kind of see in the videos where they're a third the length of their body. And most whales don't have these huge pectoral fins like that. Another way you can tell it's a humpback whale is it's called a humpback whale because when it goes up, it raises its dorsal very high into a big hump before
What'd you think?
fluke up and goes down. And
So
so that's
it's one,
another
not
way
on mute.
how you're looking.
Yeah, what did you think?
Other ways you can tell are the shape and the size of the fluke of a humpback whale. Look or a big whale below, it's going to be 2 stories high and straight up, where a humpback whale is going to be a heart-shaped globe that's not quite as big. So those are my clues, along with color, and then kind of guessing based on where you're located, which is a very imperfect thing. But guessing, okay, we're in a place where humpback whales have been seen before, and if you've been in a place where things have been researched before, you have a little bit more of a chance of guessing which species.
Okay, Penelope wants to know what other non-humpback whales have you seen?
Oh, down in Guerrero?
She didn't say.
Yeah, so the question online was what other whales that humpback whales have we seen? And I'm gonna assume that's in Guerrero. So we have seen, I'm thinking in Spanish, Brutus whales. So Ballena edeni are one whale, they also call them the Ballena tropical. And we've seen sperm whale, just one. We have seen maybe 16 different species of dolphins and down there. Very few seals. They're usually like a teenager, a wandering boy. Yeah. Yes.
So is there interbreeding between these different groups?
There is, yeah. And so they're not like, but I think that there's a thing that we need to do some analysis about because if they're going all the way down to Central America is going to breed with Central America, and that's going to make their genes more similar because of where they are. And also Central American whales, we've noticed they seem to come earlier in the season, so there's a temporal or a time basis thing connected to how their genes turn out in addition to where they are. But in the genetics, it wasn't like, oh, that was Central America, purebred. I mean, they would show more tendency toward this, the moms are more like this than this. So yeah.
Michael wants to know what a good intro publication about humpback behavior.
Oh boy, a good intro publication. Well, I don't know about science publications, but I have a few books that I really love. One is called The Grandest of Lives. I don't remember. I think it's a section. Has anybody read it? It's a great book. It's got maybe 5 different whales, and I think there's a chapter in it about humpback whales that I think is really terrific. So I would read The Grandest of Lives. And then I would go to the bibliography and go from there. Yeah.
How do they decide where to go? Do they have like the matriarchs or is it instinctual or both?
That's a great question. So every time, wherever a humpback whale is born, it will always go back there. I think that is so interesting. So even if it gets very crowded and very not cool for that whale to be there, it's still going to go back where it was born. So to mate, male or female. And so they're very loyal to where they go back, which is why it's really on us to take care of our place and know, okay, this place might get very developed. We don't know what world we're going into, but we know that these whales are going to keep coming back because their genetics have told them to do so. And then we know that the yearlings are they spend a year with their moms. And I don't know if the humpback whale calves travel down with their moms or not. Maybe someone knows the answer to that, but I don't know the answer to that. But I can tell you that they are getting a lot of information from their moms. And by spending a lot of time with them, they are definitely inheriting a certain amount of culture. And humpback whales have very strong culture where they teach each other song, they teach each other feeding techniques, they teach each other where to go. They communicate really well with each other. But what it looks like in terms of groups is so hard to wrap our heads around because they're a watery creature. And what is hanging out? If you're talking a mile away from each other, are you hanging out? I think for the whales it might be. And we're so visual that we think if you can't see it, you're not hanging out. But I think that they might be feeling like they're hanging out, even if they're talking from like Japan to Antarctica, they might be hanging out. Yeah.
How long do they usually live?
Humpback whales live to be about 70 or about as long as we do. Yeah. Yeah.
Katrina, I thought the crab pots were being limited during the gray whale migration. Are the gray whales affected more by the crab pot lines than the humpbacks, or all the whales affected evenly, or?
I want Sarah to help me with this question. I will tell you my guess, and Sarah is going to be able to correct me on this. This is Sarah Grimes, and she's in charge of the stranding of all of the marine mammals in this area. You probably don't like it that I said it that way, but but I do. I'm a little hyperbolic. But yeah, the humpback whales with their giant long pectoral fins are going to come and hit a line and they're going to go, oh, and turn. Maybe it's like fun kelp, yay. And then they spin. And then the thing gets around their huge giant pectoral fin. And then they spin again. And now it's around their body. And now it's around their other fin. And now, oh no, now it's around its whole head and mouth. And now it's going to slip down, slip down, slip down. So they have these long appendages that the gray whales don't have, which is going to make it something. And humpback, yeah, but I'd like to hear Sarah's input on that too.
I think that just that, what Kat just said about the long sticky outy parts getting into ropes is definitely an issue. And the curiosity that the whales have around those crab pots. The gray whales have a lot of barnacles and they are moving past us right next to the crab pots. So when you see crab pots off of Fort Bragg, they're directly in the route of the gray whale. The gray whales are following that shelf. So they're shallow and they're just right up in each other's business. You know, it's hard to I oftentimes see the crab pots out there and I see gray whales migrating through. It's like they're right in the same exact lateral line. So but I know that most humpbacks have entanglement scars on them, as do gray whales. So at some point, even if they don't die from it, they do have those. And we just responded to one this past week on Manchester Beach that was suspected orca predation. And not only did it have the orca predation evidence, it also had evidence of some encounters with some ropes. And it was only maybe just approaching its second year of life. So we have a humpback. But learning from those strandings just tells us so much about these whales and how they live their lives.
Did the orca just kill it and not eat it then?
No, the orca had a meal. That orca, Captain Richard saw killer whales off of Casper on the 7th of October. And on the 12th of October, at our fundraiser, we saw the humpback whales and people down in Walala preaching and tail slapping and flute slapping, all of that. And then come the 16th of October, this humpback whale washes up in Manchester. And he had part of his tongue was missing, and there were definitely like tooth marks there. And somebody said, why didn't the killer whales eat more? Well, if you kill the lamb, would you eat the whole lamb in one eating? And apparently in Alaska, they will stash food And here, they're not really, they're just, they'll catch it in days, and it's cold, they'll come back and feed later. But, here they may eat a little bit, then they're full, and it's time to move on to the next interaction, whatever it may be. Thanks, Kat, and thank you all for reporting marine mammals. Anytime you're out there, you can look far and near for strandings and report it for the Noya Center Stranding Hotline. And we learned so much from the stranded animals. My talk is in mid-December, but I love that Kat brings a lot more light to the whales that we know, not just the dead thing stories.
I've got a few questions
You
here.
gotta go to Watch the Shore though in December. It's a really interesting talk. Yeah,
So we want to know if there's any group trips to Guerrero for whale watching and the best place to see humpbacks close up.
okay, so the first question is if we have any group trips planned for Guerrero. We would love to, not yet, maybe in a year. I think you all should go there. And when Kike comes up, we're gonna have some parties and welcomes, and we're gonna make sure all of you have his phone number and know where to go. And I'm sure Kike would love to connect you, and you can take cooking classes and go on nature walks and buy art from the women, and you can go whale watching, and it will be fabulous. You don't need me to guide that trip, but I would love to connect you with him. Yeah, and maybe someday we'll do an expedition. And what was the other question?
A great place to see humpback whales.
A great place to see humpback whales out of Fort Bragg. So I'm telling you, Noyo Canyon. I went out here last year and it was like those women getting that friendly whale. It wrecked me. I'm so mad because I went out with Sarah and Tim and we saw dozens of blue whales and fin whales and hundreds of humpbacks. And that was the first time I'd gone whale watching out here. I was like, this place is amazing. And it's always great out there. It's not always hundreds of animals, but it's always you getting out full of hope, being on the ocean, paying attention, being together, thinking about other animals than us. And that's a great day. And chances are you're going to see some humpback whales if you get out there. So yeah, I would recommend here right now.
Do you know the age or the sex of the whale that was interacting with the sea turtle?
I don't. That was an adult whale, but that's all I know about the whale that was interacting with the sea turtle. But if anybody wants to see that all of that video, I would love to hear analysis from an expert or a real curious person. I just thought that was so interesting. And Eric and I were going to work on a paper, but we lost Eric, so here we are. Yeah.
I have heard of, it was used with lobster traps. Float recovery systems that are triggered by sound so that they don't have a line floating to the surface on the line. Just when you come off the sim of code, puts out the buoy and you pick it up.
Yeah. The East Coast is really in New Bedford and an area. They're leading the way in doing experimental fishing here and trying to come up with ways that people can go for crab and lobster without entangling the whales. And we have quick release technologies out here that we'd like to work with too. And there are a few fishermen who are experimenting with it. It's such a tough thing, this industry. I mean, it's so expensive to buy the gear, and people are just living on a nice edge of survival with the boat bucks they have to spend to keep their boats in the water, their gear taken care of. And so it's this huge investment where everybody has to work together and prioritize all of the species and not just ourselves. But it's there are some pretty brilliant technologies out there, and there's so much more to do. So they have a gear lending library in New Bedford, Massachusetts, that I think is really amazing because the fishermen can like work together and borrow gear and try things out. It's a whole other project. Yeah.
Knowing about how whales interact or see the boats that come out to watch them. To what extent it's those disturbing to them, especially during the breeding season.
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I don't have a specific answer. There has been a lot of research done on it. what I can tell you is what we've done, and what we do is when there's a whale, we never go closer than 60 meters to the whale down in Mexico, which is pretty similar to here. And we see the whale, we figure out what the whale is doing. Is it relaxing? Is it chasing? Is it resting? Before we get closer. And then the whale, we never go head on to the whale. We never chase the whale. We go to the back and to the side of the whale, the speed of the whale. Now, if the whale has a calf with it, and if mom keeps putting herself between the calf and us, that means it's not cool. And so we let them go. If mom or adult whale changes direction or speed, we let them go. But if the whale just keeps on going the same speed, the same pace, doesn't change directions, and we're going behind it and to its side, we think, okay, the whale's not changing what it's doing, and it's not changing how often it's coming up, it's not changing direction, it's not changing speed. You do not spend more than 30 minutes with the whale because acoustically that's going to bother the whale. They're just spending a lot of time with it. We don't go more than 2 boats near the whale at the same time. Again, out of respect for acoustics as well. So that's the way that we do it down in Guerrero. And what I love is during our whale watch training, one of the things we do is we teach our captains to be whales. So we turn out the lights, they're blindfolded, they live acoustically, and then we give them the experience of being in a noisy ocean with boats and yelling tourists, and they have this very emotional reaction to feeling what it's like to be an acoustic animal in the dark with sudden noises. And it really sensitizes people to what life would be like as an acoustic creature. So that's what we do there. And what I've noticed is that, like, when you're cool with them, they're cool with you. And the more the captains are mellow around the whales, the more friendly the whales seem to be. It's been a general tendency I've noticed. And one thing I love about the boat we've been going out on is Richard is amazing at that. He quickly picks up on the Kraken, what speed, what direction, what the whale's doing, and he's extremely respectful around the whale, and I haven't seen them changing behaviors, which is one of the reasons I'm so happy that we're working together. So yeah. Yeah.
I saw online, it was a reel, that it was whales and large mammal, ocean mammals that had barnacles on them. They had a very intensive video of how they remove them, they take them to ship them, and they put the special stuff on to kind of clean it, and then they fry them off, and it takes a really long time, and I wonder if you have any experience of it. Have you seen the barnacles?
Yeah, I would not do that.
Also,
yeah.
that's, I think that's AI.
Yeah, that is AI. The video that you're seeing. But I mean, people do that with turtles a lot too, when they have a lot of them. But these whales use those barnacles as weapons. And so the dudes, man, they need to fight. And they've got these like barnacles on their tails and on their fins. And that's how they get their scars. And then when they go down and they slump their skin, they're releasing some of those barnacles. So they're not weighed down by them. It's a whole ecosystem going on in their bodies. It's actually pretty neat. Yeah. Thanks for asking. Anything else? Yeah.
Wondering about the crib on the boat.
Yeah.
So I got it like out, but so like all day he was coming seasickness.
Oh, no, okay. Yeah, all right. So first of all, these two trips we've changed them to half days for these two coming up. So they are 5 or 6 hours. That said, this is not Mexico. It is sometimes can get big out there. And we don't go out if it's gonna be miserable. That's one of the other tricky things here is we want to get out all the time, and one day it'll be big and hard and we have to fight to see a whale, and the next day it's a mirror and 6 orcas are hanging out around the boat and we're not on the boat. So it's you just have to get out and try, and we cancel the trip if it's too rough But my recommendation for seasickness is go get yourself bony and take one the night before, take one an hour before. And that's a non-drowsy effective thing. I just like buy those Chimes ginger chews and pound them. I haven't yet been seasick, but I feel like these ginger chews that drinking ginger tea can help a lot. Don't look at your phone. Keep your eye on the horizon. Move with the sea. Like let it. It's like you kind of just gotta be with the ocean, which is explain, but there's you just gotta practice, and it helps. But the captain helps as well with seasickness and sort of gives you some advice and takes care of you. But no, it's a big ocean out there. It's an adventure, and there is a heated cabin. There's seats and these sorts of things, but it is a tiring day to go out and spend 5 hours, and you go home and you feel like you did something after you get on that. Yeah, yeah.
Our community citizen science groups that like the same populations that's in Sonoma County or this area that you
Yeah, gosh, there's a lot of different groups. I don't know who's in Sonoma. Do you, Sherry? It's I know Sherry's in Gualala.
Yeah.
And then south of there, I mean, there's Oceanic Society, and then there's a ton of people down in Monterey. Sorry.
We have the census, Scott Tree Mercer of Mendocino, Wales.
Right, yeah, fantastic. One is going on, and then the Nova Tree Census, and that's been with Scott and Tremor, so that's been going on for a very, very long time.
They're going to do the 13th year. They're here for
13 years.
So they actually moved here, so we have been looking at them for the last 3 years, and they've been adding humpbacks. So, and I texted Tree, we're up there up to 391 humpbacks since June.
Wow. 91 humpbacks have been counted. Oh, that's exciting. And where are they located?
Yeah, so there it's Gualala Point Arena.
In Gualala Point Arena. So you guys, there's so many whales out there. We've just got to get out there. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm gonna wrap this up. You've all got my contact information. I hope you're gonna need something.